Ladies and gentlemen, as soon as we get a quorum in here, we're going to get started. Come on in, Jay. And I do realize we're going to have a lot of folks going in and out today with different committees that are overlapping. It's that time of the year. We do have lunch again, so please, gosh, we're going to be so fat by the time this thing is over, I'm not going to be able to get my coat up.
I signed it. Y'all ain't got to call me. Y'all ain't got to email me no more.
Mr. Chairman, come on in.
Hey, baby.
Oh, so I'll show you how to do that too.
How many were getting, Mr. Chairman?
We can get started now.
So make sure you call her and tell her that she got your lesson.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. Lunch again. I'm gonna get you fat before it's all over with. Lunch is over on the side. Help yourself.
Don't be deceived. Put it away. I can put it away, Chairman.
Please. I want to remind everybody, committee members, if you have not had lunch, there is a hot lunch right here in the back, provided by our sponsors, our Georgia Sports. I'm sorry? 5 minutes to set up? Okay. We will hold up 5 minutes, but I will go ahead and tell you who our sponsors are today as they're putting this together. Georgia Sports, the Georgia Association of Convention and Visitors Bureau, the Georgia Hotel and Lodging Association, the Georgia Rivers, and Hughes Public Affairs. Again, let me do this one more time. Georgia Sports, the Georgia Association of CVBs, the Georgia Hotel and Lodging Association, the Georgia Rivers, Hughes Public Relations. And as we get started here into the what is arguably a tie for the largest industry in the state of Georgia, which used to be 100% agriculture. Well, today, tourism is in a virtual tie with that. So as we get started to hear that, that's big news. As we get started to hear the tourism piece, we're going to start with Explore Georgia. And I think I'm going to get maybe, if you'll pull that one up. Thank you, Jay. Jay, you have the floor. Let's see. Thank you. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your time, and thank you to the members of this committee. I'm honored to be with you today from the Georgia Department of Economic Development, joining the team a year ago, January, as the statewide tourism director. And I am based out of Augusta, Georgia. Proud to be from Savannah originally, and I think we've got a presentation queuing up here for you. And just want to take a minute to recognize Chairman Stevens for being such a tourism champion for our industry. So many years, and awarded by the tourism industry at governor's conferences. And many of you are our champions. We know we're, as far as tourism economic development goes, we're preaching to the choir. But excited to share some information with you today. And who we are, I know that you have had Lee Thomas from our film division. So of course we are one of the divisions of economic development the sales and marketing arm for the state, and of course our Center of Innovation, Council for the Arts, Film, Global Commerce, International Relations, Tourism, and Trade. Who we are specifically as the Tourism Division is we are the, through our network of regional representatives as well as our 9 visitor centers that outline the state of Georgia on our interstates, and our network of marketing and communications team at the department. We are driving tourism and inspiring travel to and within the state of Georgia. We are very excited to welcome you, and many of you were with us. We want to personally thank you for being with us in Atlanta at the Hotel Signia in 2024, last September for the Governor's Tourism Conference. But this year we are very excited to welcome you to Savannah. We have not been to Savannah with the Governor's Conference since 2015, and so we rotate this conference around the state, and we're excited to be back in Savannah in September. We host the joint House and Senate committee meeting at the conference, so we're excited. Our team is already planning for a great event to have you all down there with us, and hope you will join us. Thank you to the Visit Savannah team who will be our partners in hosting that. So now to share some numbers with you. And I first want to say that back in 2020, our marketing team shifted strategy from a seasonal and regional approach in close proximity to the state to where we then moved to, and that had been done historically, to a year-round and more distant opportunity markets across the U.S. And that is working. The goal was to increase market share and have Georgia be more competitive nationwide. And for 4 years in a row now, and you'll see the numbers here on the screen, 4 years in a row, we have been the number 5 ranked in the nation for domestic overnight visitation. You'll see that building on back-to-back years, and Governor Kemp at the conference this past year applauded the industry for being a leading powerhouse in Georgia's economy. In 2023, we had 171 million visitors, spent over $43 billion in Georgia's hotels, restaurants, transportation, and other local businesses. The impact of that visitation generated nearly $80 billion, and to Chairman Stevens' comments to kick off this meeting, nearly $80 billion in total economic impact and supported over 463,000 jobs. Of course, when we speak tourism, we are talking several different market segments, not just leisure tourism, agritourism, as was mentioned in another committee meeting here when my friend Will Bentley was presenting, the group business, our different interest segments. We are importing temporary taxpayers in the business of tourism. I would like to add to that, as we again welcome you to our tourism convention, that in business-related travelers in convention business, 16.4 million business-related travelers to Georgia drove $4.3 billion in spending in 2023. Of course, we released the 2024 numbers. Governor Kemp releases those numbers at the conference in Savannah this year. There's an increase of nearly 10 million business-related travelers and more than $1 billion in spending compared to year-over-year 2022. You should have, we distributed to your offices, and also Chairman Stevens' team has for you as well, the Georgia Travel Guide. If you have not seen this piece, we distribute 500,000 of this signature piece each year. Mainly, one of the major hubs is our 9 visitor centers on the interstates. You do have a copy of this piece, and we're very excited this year that we're highlighting in our major interests being small towns, cities, coast, and the mountains of Georgia. And this year's piece highlights Toccoa Falls on the front cover, Sapelo Island as the coast, small town being Covington, Georgia, was Bainbridge last year, and our beaches, and our city being Columbus, Georgia this year. On the last year was Atlanta, this year Columbus. very excited about this piece. It also features more than 100 cities and counties throughout this guide. We also work with our state parks to make sure that we are distributing not only their information, but they distribute our information for us, and 14.1 million visits to our state parks in Georgia in 2024. We are very excited to share, and this is hot off the press, you're hearing it first today, that our efforts with the U.S. Civil Rights Trail. So, in the U.S. Civil Rights Trail, there are 11 or so sites in the state of Georgia already designated, from Midway to Albany and Atlanta. In other cities, we have 11 sites currently, but we're very excited to announce that adding to the 2025 trail, the Madam C.J. Walker Museum and WERD studio in Atlanta was just added and being announced today from the annual application process. So we're very excited to announce this addition. It results in our partnership efforts to grow that trail and promote our visitation to significant civil rights sites across the state. As we're gearing up for 2026, Governor Kemp established Georgia US 250 Commission to commemorate the 250th anniversary of America's founding. The commission is led by the Georgia Humanities, also the Georgia Historical Society, and the Department of Economic Development. The US 250 website is live now, and programming ideas and inspiration for our partners, public and private sector, to start planning leading up to and throughout 2026, because this isn't just about the Independence Day or that 4th of July. And as you know, we have many assets across the state in the different regions commemorating America 250. So I encourage you to visit that through exploregeorgia.org, our website for the America 250. Just to touch on our international effort, one of our market segments. On the international front, we continue to grow visitation, elevating Georgia's brand on the world stage at a number of trade shows. I know that picture's a little small on the screen, but I can tell you that in Los Angeles this past May, we had the strongest Georgia presence, 12 partners on the floor, from Americus, Georgia, to Columbus, Athens, you name it. Every region of Georgia was represented. You can probably see the Macon team there in their pink Cherry Blossom Festival blazers, and then our friend from Cartersville laying across the front of the picture there, Representative Gamble. So in our international visitation right now, we know that Georgia's top 5 markets for inbound visitation, Canada, the UK, India, Germany, and South Korea. We have those numbers to share with all of you. I can tell you that that's very exciting to listen to the international visitor about coming to Georgia and our experiences. The German market specifically loves the outdoors. So we even hear from our folks at the Okefenokee Swamp about the German market wanting to come, and again, that's where our state parks come into play. But we will be on the road again this year with another strong presence in Chicago coming up in June for a return for this U.S. Travel Premier Showcase on the world stage, and taking our local Georgia partners with us. Just to touch on the FIFA World Cup and leading up to the club matches that are happening in 2025, where from June to July, we will have what the Metro Atlanta Chamber has reported would be the 8 matches scheduled, generating more than $500 million in economic impact to the state of Georgia, and bringing 520,000 spectators, with an average estimate of 65,000 spectators per match. Why is this important? Well, positioning Georgia as the hub for these international travelers touches every corner of Georgia. We heard in these international meetings that they want to come to Georgia whether they have tickets or not. The word they use is the occasion. They want to be here where that football, that soccer is happening for them. And they're excited, and we have heard from our friends at the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau that as those teams advance, and we won't know the teams and countries until the December of 25 for 26, they will stay and hub out of Georgia to go support their teams. and travel all around to see and experience what we have in Georgia. So to wrap up, I will share that as we touched on the sports market, this goes way beyond the World Cup. The sports tourism remains a key contributor to our economy. That's why we are investing in this online tool for our local sports commissions, sports councils. It's my understanding on your agenda, you're about to hear from Lee Hooten with the Georgia Sports Association. And we have invested in the fact that we know in the next 5 years, 30% of meeting planners are expected to choose Georgia for their sporting events. We have committed to software to help the local sports organizations with not only assessing their community to host sports tournaments, but also to matchmake. The growth potential is it's a matchmaking software for tournament rights holders for our local sports teams and commissions to host in their community. So with that, and in the spirit of a packed agenda I see, and because I'm now very familiar with the investment in youth sports personally, I have apologized to my friends that I'll be ducking out to baseball in Augusta in just by 5 o'clock. So thank you for listening to appreciate the opportunity to give you an Explore Georgia and tourism update.
Thank you, Jay. Has members got any questions for our presenter? Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I just have one question, and thank you for coming in and being here today. I wanted to expound on the economic impact of this World Cup and Super Bowl, which will both be my district, and what do you think that will bring total to Georgia, and are there any workings with any other departments, whether it be community affairs, the state of Atlanta, the county, to support their surrounding community with those events, ensuring that investment goes back into the community?
So I would need to get that information back to you from our research team. Dr. Ashley Barfield on our team, as well as we are in close communication with the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau and the Atlanta sports team for some of those bigger impact numbers. But we can certainly get with those partners and get it back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Nick, why don't you step up to the mic right here?
Yeah.
Introduce yourself and answer that question for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Barry, Nick Fernandez with the Metro Atlanta Chamber, and I'll say, so it was a great presentation on World Cup, and certainly we're excited about the economic impact that this is going to have. But I'll say one of the areas that we typically always have, and Dan Corso, the head of the Atlanta Sports Council, this past go around was actually here a couple days ago in recognition of the work that happened with CFP that was recently held here around the legacy project that occurred. That's really where the Sports Council and the organizing committee, so for this one it's the FIFA World Cup host committee, really puts back an investment and works with the community around making sure that there's a lasting project that occurs after this event. So a lot has already happened in the sports world, and mainly the soccer, especially with soccer on the streets. Atlanta United has made a commitment, I think, of over 100 pitches getting revitalized around the state. And so there's already ongoing projects around the World Cup trying to make sure there's an investment in the community.
Thank you.
Big stuff. As we're moving to the next questions, there's several here. Lunch is ready for you guys. Want to just take a break and step back there and fill up a plate. Let's go to number 4. Who's that? Yes,
We're just ready for nothing.
Oh,
Jill.
thank you, sir. Before you leave, thank you. Thank you so much for all of your graciousness from the Garden City. I am happy to announce that hopefully tomorrow it will show up on the local calendar, the bill that we've sponsored in Augusta. It's called the Garden City Charm and Tourism Act. And that is the hotel motel tax that we have now determined to enact in the state of Augusta, pursuant to the request of the commission. So I'm excited to be able to continue to support your work. Please let me know if there's anything else that I can do. As you see, the support that I have with the chairman and my colleagues here on this committee, I'd be more than happy to do what I can to make this effort even more robust for Augusta.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Representative Jones.
Thank you so much, Chairman Stevens. Thank you so much for your presentation today. It was very enlightening. The question that I have is, I'm excited about the software that you have for hosting sports events and tourism. What are the metrics that you're using to make sure that a community is meeting those benchmarks to be considered as they're looking in using your software? Is there a website where we can have those metrics so we can make sure that our communities are prepared for that?
Absolutely, yes. And I believe your next speaker is the user of the software with her association. And I think that would be the most accurate answer for using the actual metrics in the software. We're the partners providing it to the local communities, but the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Gamble?
Thank you, Chairman. Jay, always good to hear from you and appreciate everything that you do. With as big as FIFA is, and I mean, this is massive, and I'm looking at the numbers you gave us on what it's going to bring and how many people are expected to visit. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity within that for economic development, whether it's existing industry or prospective industry. And so I know there's been talk about that, and I know y'all are putting plans in place to take advantage of that. But I just want to reiterate what an opportunity we have, not only to showcase our state from a tourism standpoint, but also from an economic development standpoint. And I know the department has plans in place to really capitalize on that. But I just wanted to stress that to y'all. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you.
And we have a very special guest in our midst, Representative Saines. Why don't you introduce him?
I will. Well, I'll start with that. My father and stepmother are here. I just wanted to appreciate a long time. My initiation in public service was helping him put on his tool belt as a 30-year officer, federally and locally. Along with his beautiful wife Mary, who has the hardest job I could ever think of, is keeping track of them. But Jay, in terms of the sports tourism, I know there's some great projects coming to Atlanta, and nothing to put off to that, but I think you'll be in a pretty bad situation if you're attending one of those and staying in a hotel in Kingsland, Georgia. But what I do want to say is your department has gone a little bit less recognized for something that may be not as attractive looking, but just as impactful to our economic development in this state, which is the youth tourism sector. And y'all have been great stewards and great partners for a project that has come to fruition in Kingsland, Georgia, the Georgia-Florida's tourism project that our locals are putting $10 million to really help encapsulate the industry that is ever growing, which is youth sports in our sector. And I know that's a top of a conversation in different ways, but what we do know is youth sports are making up more and more, especially girls sports, as we know those families travel with those girls and shop in our local communities. I really want to thank you for making sure that your department has paid attention to those areas and have really held in partnership the hand of our local sector there, and I know in a lot of other communities, bringing in these smaller but very, very useful and very impactful industries to our states as we compete all along the eastern coast, and especially in the south area, as the sunny part of Georgia is much more lucrative to play softball at than the cold areas in Virginia and up north. So thank you.
Well, thank you. In 5 minutes, it's hard to Dublin, Georgia, not just the coast, not just Lake Point sports. Dublin, Georgia, baseball facility, hotels, restaurants, stay full. I mean, it's youth sport. You're exactly right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Georgia Sports. And while we're doing that, Ms. Peck is going to be bringing around your lunch so that you don't have to stop and get up. So if you don't want it, just pass on to the next. Georgia Sports, please. And again, thank you for sponsoring lunch.
Good afternoon. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Everyone good? My name is Lee Hooten. I am the Director of Sports Development with the Gwinnett Sports Commission and also sit on the board for Georgia Sports. And just kind of wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of sports tourism in the entire state of Georgia. Chairman, you actually teed me up very nicely, so thank you very much. But just wanted to tell you more about sports tourism in general. In our state, all of the state tourism divisions are tasked with recruiting sporting events to come to our local communities to help drive hotel stays, restaurant visits, and overall economic activity. As you were mentioning earlier, most people probably think of larger sporting events like the World Cup, like the Super Bowl, but honestly, what we work on mostly day to day are these youth events that are in our local communities. It's very much impactful for a small town like Rome to host a college or youth tennis tournament. That goes a long ways for them because that really affects every restaurant, every hotel in their community. We are funded primarily by a portion of the local hotel motel tax within our communities, and we work not only with professional collegiate events, but like I said, most importantly, our youth events. And a lot of people think of sports as being just your traditional sports like baseball, football, soccer, but actually we're working mostly on non-traditional sports like cornhole and fishing tournaments. So we have to try to train people to get out of the mindset of those traditional sports. I want to talk a little bit about our national economic impact from a standpoint from our national organization is called Sports ETA, and they did a state of the industry report last year and said that sports tourism in the U.S. as a whole generates $52.2 billion in direct spending. That's leading to $128 billion of total economic impact, and that supports 757,000 full-time jobs. Additionally, this industry as a whole in sports tourism in the U.S. contributes $20.1 billion in taxes, and that benefits multiple sectors of our community. This research was put on by Tourism Economics, and that number does not actually include professional events as well as collegiate regular season games. So if you can imagine that $52 billion would shoot up if you also included those pro events as well, such as World Cup and Super Bowl. And just wanted to talk specifically about the state of Georgia as a whole and how we compare to other states in the U.S. when it comes to sports tourism. We currently rank 9th in the nation in terms of economic impact generated from sports tourism, and that is without dedicated state funding. So that's something that we're really proud of, that ranking, that we can be in the top 10 without any state funding. I think that says a lot about the hard work that everyone within our state is doing. Like I said, that's every community. Georgia Sports, as a group, we have about 25 members, and those are cities including the Romes, the Savannahs, but also includes the larger counties like myself and Gwinnett, City of Atlanta as well. So we're all really working hard in our own communities to bring in that sports tourism. But most importantly, on a day-to-day basis, we are competing with states like Texas and Florida who receive state dedicated grants for sports tourism. I can tell you, and I've been in this industry for almost 12 years now, I'm constantly talking to clients where I'm interested in their event and they are telling me, well, we can get money from Texas. They're going to give us $15,000. So we're just going to go to Texas instead of coming to Gwinnett. Our real life example is I have actually met with NCAA, wanted to talk to them about bringing in their national championships for gymnastics to Gwinnett. We've hosted SEC gymnastics in Gwinnett many times. We do very well with that event. And they've straight up told me they're tired of going to Fort Worth every year for that event, but Fort Worth is giving them that state funding from Texas. So I can't compete with that right now because we only have so much money in our budget for that event. So that's just wanted you to see a real life example of what we deal with all the time. Texas, for example, their grant is a tiered grant structure. So if you ever have any questions about state funding and how these states are doing their sports tourism, I'm happy to answer any questions and ask my colleagues around the U.S. But in Texas, theirs is tiered so that they have a section for the major event funds, such as your Final Fours, your Super Bowls, and then one tier down from that is their mid-size events. So they have a whole nother area of funding for that as well. And then they actually have another sector that's for motorsports. And that just allows them to attract and retain more events. Currently, there are 23 states that allocate tourism funds for sports, with 2 more on the way. And as I noted before, unfortunately, Georgia is not one of those. So we are essentially competing against 23 states for business for our clients. So yeah, just wanted to say with any state level funding, Georgia could really expand its reach and attract both large and small events to our communities. Like I said, those small youth events all the way up to the larger events, the NCAA events. So yeah, we just ask if you consider investing in tourism. It's obviously a proven way to help create jobs and support our local businesses and increase our tax revenue. So if you have any questions,
Members.
please let me know.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Jones.
So it's back to the question
Yes.
that I previously asked. Do you remember, or do I need to repeat?
No, I remember.
All right, very good.
Yeah, so we have a program called the Sports Index, a Sports Tourism Index, and it's a platform that is offered by a company called Tempest. And so they put that on. So basically, there's a whole platform of potential events that we could try to bring to our communities. So it's just basically a platform that has leads for all different clients. Like I said, everything from baseball, basketball to cornhole. So if your community or anyone in your community is interested in participating in that, just reach out to me and I can put them in touch with our contact at Tempest. And that's offered on behalf of the state office. That's offered to every community in the state to use.
Chairman, can I ask a follow-up question? Thank you. So I represent Macon
Okay.
and parts of Warner Robins, particularly Macon, because we do have the largest pickleball facility.
Yeah.
And
Very
so,
nice. I'm
yes.
jealous.
So I'm just trying to make sure that we're driving that industry to that area. Also, I do remember growing up where we used to be able to host the state basketball game, which it's not there anymore. And so I was just very curious on what are some of the things that they're now looking for, so that we can make sure our city is meeting those requirements, so that we can bring those things back to our city. So I appreciate you and your information.
Sure. So Alex Wood is your contact for Macon. He's with the Macon CVB, and he does subscribe to that platform. So he should be getting all of the potential leads. As far as GHSA state basketball is concerned, they're any GHSA event. They're obviously great events. We've held wrestling in the past in Gwinnett as well. It's something that we're trying to bring back too. It just all kind of comes down to money. I'll be very honest. GHSA doesn't necessarily have the most money, so they definitely need some extra help. So that's a situation where if we did have state funding, we could use that to help recruit these events to our communities. So, yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you for
Thank you.
the presentation. And now we'll hear for the Georgia CVB, Georgia Association of CVBs.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chairman Stevens and Vice Chair Gamble. It's good to see you again, and all the committee for this incredible opportunity here today. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. My name is Amanda Dyson Thornton. I represent the Georgia Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus. We are the unified voice for all Georgia's destination marketing organizations, and we are all about providing industry education, advocacy, and professional development that our destination marketing organizations need to succeed. So let's talk a little bit about the important role that DMOs play. They are the driving force behind the economic impact tourism has on Georgia. So you mentioned earlier that now we're tying with agriculture. So the DMOs are behind that force, and that is what we're here to represent and make sure they have the tools that they need to be successful. So through their bold, effective destination marketing strategies, our cities, counties, and regions work together to generate visitor spending, and that means supporting thousands of businesses and creating jobs across our state. From coast to the mountains to the swamp, tourism fuels every corner of Georgia's economy. And you heard those big numbers in Jay's presentation earlier. So here's the thing, though. We are the advocacy organization with a laser focus on leadership and education. So you all have your push card. I think Jennings is passing those around as we speak, with our legislative priorities listed on them. You'll see that protecting lodging tax for their intended use. That's one that we cut and paste every year. That's very crucial to our industry. Support workforce development. I think that's mine reminding me to go get my daughter. But she's out of school today. It's winter break. Thank you. The fact that thank you. Yeah, no. And the fact that I even have to set a reminder, right? But to support workforce development initiatives, as Jay mentioned, obviously that's over 460,000 jobs that tourism supports. But the big one, and the one I really wanted to talk to you about today, is reinvest in marketing Georgia as a tourism destination at levels competitive with our neighboring states. So I'm echoing exactly what Lee has just mentioned with the comparison to our neighboring states and how can we compete with that. We aim to work with y'all, the Appropriations Committee, you name it, to make sure we secure more funding for Explore Georgia. Why? Because we need to ensure that Georgia is competing at the same level as our neighboring states when it comes to tourism marketing. You know that old poem, right? He who has a product to sell and whispers in a well is not as apt to get the dollar as he who climbs the tree and hollers, right? You've heard that? Well, I've tweaked that for today. So she who has a state to sell and whispers in a well is not as apt to get the dollar as she who climbs the tree and hollers. So picture me right now climbing the tree and hollering that tourism is a massive $80 billion industry in Georgia. And just like we've said, now competes with the ag division. And we need your help to make that even bigger. I was watching the other committee meetings online, and I heard Representative Williams speak at the one about film, and his direct quote was so powerful. It said, if we are not vigilant in keeping up with others, we will lose the business. We need to be aggressive with our mission. So I appreciated that, and I hope that you all have that same stance for the tourism industry. So with your support, we can keep building and growing this vital sector of Georgia's economy. So I'm asking you today to please climb that tree with me and yell, Georgia is awesome. That's what we're doing. So thank you all for your time today, and thank you for this opportunity, Chairman Stevens.
Absolutely. Leader Gamble.
Thank you, Chairman Amanda. I appreciate your comments. And, I think it's interesting because I would say, we do a lot with a little.
Yes.
And, of course, it helps to have a state that people want to come to, and we've got a lot to offer. But compared to a lot of the other states around us, they spend a lot more on tourism. And in 1985, when Al Burris was in the legislature and the decision was made to go from an annual spend of $300,000 to then $2.5 million, I imagine that was a transformational increase. And now we're hovering around 11. But, states around us are at 20 or 25. And so it's just something for y'all to ponder. It doesn't mean that we're going to 25, but it just means that, think about that. We have been very resourceful with what we have, but there's a lot of opportunity to bring people here from a tourism standpoint. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Absolutely.
To follow up on that, are we last or next to last as far as spending per capita goes?
Last.
Thought so. Just thank you to follow up on.
That goes back to the Georgia is so awesome, and to have to say those words that Georgia is last is truly heartbreaking. So,
for an industry that's number one,
right,
or
exactly.
close to it. So
yes,
tied.
Yep.
Any other members? Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
The Hotel and Lodging Association.
All right. I feel like I don't really have to speak after what Amanda just said, but thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Leader Gamble, thank you and the committee for your tireless efforts in supporting the hospitality and tourism industry. As Chairman Stevens mentioned earlier, the largest economic driver aligned with ag. So thank you for that. I did provide a brief little handout, tried to be in alignment with the previous witness and trying to make everything a little bit prettier with my pieces, but those are direct Georgia numbers. I'm not going to go over those at all. Talk a little bit about the hotel industry as a whole, what we can expect now and leading up into the future. After conversations with several of our economists that we've worked with, CBRE, STR, Smith Travel Research, as well as a couple others, they are all in agreement that we are actually currently in a flat market. And we do expect a little bit of a bump next year. I like to think of that as more of an artificial bump because we have a big event coming to town, the World Cup, that will ripple across the state. But I only bring that up, and Chairman Stevens, Leader Gamble, you both said it perfectly. If we don't take advantage of the opportunity next year to increase our tourism investment dollars, we'll be lagging behind. We're already lagging behind every single state in the Southeast. But we know that Tennessee, North Carolina, and even Alabama are going to try to recruit, market their states on an international stage, and attract those visitors while they're here. I want Georgia to turn that artificial bump into a permanent increase for tourism here in the state of Georgia, and that's going to be our efforts moving forward over the next couple of years with GHLA. I also want to commend the phenomenal work that Jay Markwalter, the state tourism director, as well as Mark Juronsky, the state's chief marketing officer, for what they've been able to accomplish with, again, very little funding. The last in the Southeast is truly remarkable. Having us be the 5th largest state in domestic visitation is truly incredible. Let's surpass Florida. Let's surpass some of those other states that are leading the way. And I think we have an opportunity to do that. And looking forward, with the help of this committee, I believe we can. But with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to reiterate everything Amanda just said, but I'm happy to entertain any questions from this committee.
Members? Thank you so much.
Perfect.
The Georgia Rivers.
Thank you, Chairman. So excited to be here. I'd like to talk about outdoor recreation, river recreation, and the fact that the United States of America just nominated to the World Heritage List our Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge.
Good
it's
stuff.
a beautiful coffee table book. If anyone wants one, please contact me. You can grab my card over there. I also have some nice Okefenokee pins and stickers. And in your folder here from Georgia Rivers, on the back you'll see the water trails. Georgia Rivers runs the state water trails program. Usually the DNR runs the water trails program, but we've got this little nonprofit named Georgia Rivers that's helping out the state and partnering with DNR on that. Also in DNR and sometimes in departments of tourism, there is an officer of outdoor recreation. Outdoor recreation brings $13 billion to our economy every year. So looking at Georgia someday having an Office of Outdoor Recreation or a State Officer of Recreation is a great idea. Georgia Rivers, we work to connect people to our rivers. It's wonderful for rural economic development, all of our water trails. We have a River Users Guide app. Joe Cook, if you want to come on up, writes our Georgia Rivers Users Guide books. If you see your river up there and would like a book, please let me know. In your packet also you'll see a comparison with other southeastern states as far as river recreation benefits and tourism, and then the ability to access and freedom to float Georgia rivers. We need to keep that so we've got that competitive advantage. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Rena. Thank you, Chairman Stevens. I'm going to just elaborate a little bit on what Rena mentioned. This little sheet in y'all's packet, it kind of looks at comparisons of 6 southern states. What we share in common is that we all have a coastline except for Tennessee in this little chart. There's another document in your packet that is a more extensive look at outdoor recreation, in particular paddle sports, and the impact of paddle sports and tourism on our rivers. But what this economic development packet shows is that if you have a large coastline, you're going to bring a lot of money in through boating. Florida, 1,300 miles of coastline, $31 billion. North Carolina, 320 miles of coastline, and they're bringing in $9.1 billion in boating. These are all statistics from the Marine Manufacturers Association. We took those stats and kind of analyzed them further on population and on the number of stream miles in the states. A lot of outdoor recreation takes place on inland streams. And so that's kind of what I want to talk to you about, is that river recreation that takes place on inland streams and often on very small streams. And what these stats kind of bear out is that state policy on where you can boat has an impact on economic numbers from boating recreation. And I would bring your attention to South Carolina, Virginia, and Georgia. South Carolina has similar coastline to Virginia and Georgia. They have fewer total stream miles than Virginia and Georgia, but South Carolina outperforms Georgia and Virginia in terms of boating impact. Now, why is that? Well, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida, Tennessee, all our neighboring states have policy that allows passage on any stream that will float a recreational watercraft. Georgia and Virginia do not. And so at Georgia Rivers, I organize a week-long canoe trip each summer. It's the largest week-long canoe and kayak trip in the country. We attract about 300 people or more each year to this trip, often taking place in rural areas, bring a lot of money into rural areas. We have participants that come last year from 15 different states. So I see what river tourism does for rural economies through doing these trips. And the point I want to make is that if we set policy that preserves the right of passage in small boats down all of our streams, we're going to be better positioned to attract tourism in Georgia. And what we're talking about is passage down streams like Big Cedar Creek in Cave Spring. We're talking about passage down Ebenezer Creek in Rincon, the Cartacay River in Ellijay, all these little streams. So I will leave y'all with one anecdote. I was talking with the Appalachian Canoe and Kayak Club in Tallahassee, Florida last night, as a matter of fact. And I asked them, do y'all do trips in Georgia? And if so, why do you do trips in Georgia or not do trips in Georgia? They told me they don't do many trips in Georgia. Why? They're afraid they're going to get arrested. So they don't do as many trips in Georgia as they do in Alabama and in Florida. In Florida, they have similar policy. If you can float a boat down a stream, then you have the right to pass down that stream. But in Georgia, that's not, our policy is uncertain and vague, so we've seen streams shut down for public passage. And that is, as that anecdote from the Appalachian Canoe and Kayak Club illustrates, it's happening now. So unless we have policy that protects passage down small streams in recreational watercraft like rafts, tubes, canoes, kayaks, we are going to be at a competitive disadvantage with our neighboring states like Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Tennessee, where passage down streams in recreational boats is protected. If you can float it, then you have a right to float down it. So this is a big issue for outdoor recreation in Georgia. Boating and fishing alone generate $1.1 billion in economic activity here in Georgia. So very important that we think about policy that protects outdoor recreation and boating on all our streams. So if y'all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Members? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I was just going to make a comment. I appreciate you coming, but we fixed it last year. We can boat on all of our navigable streams.
Yep. That was an issue. I agree. Thank you so much for coming. Lee Hughes is one of the folks that have connected the dots with many of these organizations. Have you got anything to say?
Tourism's great.
Yep.
Thank you all for your patience. Please know that all the people that spoke earlier and myself are happy to be resources to you if you have any questions about tourism. It really is a fantastic state for y'all, for us to live, work, and play in and raise a family. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And
we finally finished the convention center.
We did. You know that. If you have just 1 minute, I will tell you that.
Want to take a mic?
Yes, sir.
Because you're being streamed, so don't say anything bad.
Yes, sir.
You got to start over. You said tourism is great.
That's right. My name is Lee Hughes. I'm from Savannah with Hughes Public Affairs and representing the Georgia Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, the Tourism Leadership Council, and the Savannah Convention Center. I know this was not on the agenda, but as Chairman Hitchens pointed out, we had a great event in the state last Friday. Actually, Saturday was the first event held in the newly expanded Savannah Convention Center. That's not been a ribbon cutting. You haven't missed that ceremony. We wouldn't do that without people like Chairman Stevens and others for that event. But they hosted their first event. It was a volleyball tournament. If you can believe, there were 14,000 participants in the volleyball tournament. That brought 34,000 people to Savannah for the weekend. And the year before, there had been it had been a much smaller tournament. I believe they had 43 courts. The year before, there had been 21 courts. So it was very exciting to have the news media there and to open that new facility. We're the hostess city of the South. So it would be a little redundant for me to invite you to come to Savannah, but I'm going to do it anyway. Come to Savannah anytime, and we'd love to walk you through that convention center. So thank you.
Teddy, did you have a question?
Well, I just want to generally make some comments about the presentations today and say thank you for what you all do collectively for tourism here in Georgia. As a representative out of Columbus, Georgia, I see the impact of our river and what it can do in bringing in visitors, as we have one of the longest whitewater urban rafting courses in the nation. But I think about the Little White House, and I think about Providence Canyon, and I think about the agriculture and agritourism business all around us and what it's doing for our amazing state, and what we could possibly be doing if we just invested just a little bit more in the economic impact that it will have. Because many of these sites, Mr. Chairman, that we want people to visit are in areas where they could utilize the jobs if we can just increase the flow. So this would be a huge boost to economic development and growth in Georgia. And on behalf of the people in my area of the state, I just want to say thank you for what you do. I randomly stop by the Visitors Center sometimes over there on 185. There are always functions out there and just having a great time. And what a wonderful way for people to come into our state, to be greeted with amazing staff that are there to say hello, provide them with pamphlets or whatever they need to navigate our state. And we're doing that right. And I hope that we don't stop that. So thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
As we wind down, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for the data. I think the data points help us have a cohesive view of where we are. What sticks out to me with the codified data you've presented is there's no explanation for us running neck and neck with states that will never see a World Cup or have not seen Super Bowls, plural, and things of that nature. We've attracted Olympics to the city, which has had impact throughout the state. So we appreciate you all highlighting where we are without the funding, without the funding that you seek. It allows us to see where we could be with just additional investment. And to Representative Reese's point, that's not only economic impact. I mean, this is astonishing to me. I represent Atlanta. We are magnetic for global events, right? You said people want to come to the World Cup even though they don't have tickets. They just want the experience. And so it is my hope that we could see these numbers do some sort of upward dance with some other consideration, because if we're competing without that effort, I just imagine where we could be with it. So thank you very much for the day.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. As we close down this meeting today, if you get the opportunity to get on some of our rivers, Raina, thank you again. Really good stuff. We went down to Sioki, some of the rivers around our area are amazing. I went on a bucket list item for me, got on my little boat and went all up into Canada to see, it's called the Great Loop, to see all the other areas, and there is no place like Georgia. Don't care who you are, even the beautiful state of Florida, when I came back through, no place like Georgia. So if there's nothing else, we're adjourned.